Hello, my dear INFJ entrepreneurs. Welcome back to another video, or if you're listening this on the podcast, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about realism and limitations. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Great. So, one of the big INFJ qualities is our idealism. Okay, so one of the most difficult things for us to learn is how to bridge the gap between now and our future self. Okay, and because you're very idealistic, like I really want you to think about what your goals are in business. Where do you see yourself? Like I personally see myself in a glass house, in a gorgeous glass house. I just want my glass house. Like it's an amazing modern house. Like I've seen myself hanging out there. I see it's, being built and amazing. It's just I'm not living there right now. And I think the glass house is a massive jump from where I am right now and to where I want to go. And I think this is a big thing that most INFJs, especially in business, but I think even in life, we have a big gap between the glass house and where do we are now. And a lot of the times there are, and most INFJs, I'm sure they are guilty of this, like living a little bit in the future and kind of rejecting the now and rejecting that what we have right now. And if this is something that you are guilty of, like people tell you, like you are just such a dreamer, you are always in the future, you are like 10 steps ahead, like in your head, you are so idealistic, like you need to get realistic. Like if you ever heard people tell you that you need to get more realistic, whether it's realistic with your expectations of yourself or your business, or you have to get realistic on what's possible for you, or just like when you said to people like, oh, I want this and that's my dream, and they're like, okay, that's kind of crazy that you just said that, So you need to get more realistic. So I don't know how about you, but for the longest time, I hated when people said to me that I need to get more realistic, and very rational thinking people. Like we can think rationally, I think. Like we are amazing at rationalizing our emotions. But I really, really hated that. Like hated that when people told me, well, you need to get realistic. When I was moving to France to study for the university, before I did that, people told me, "What you need to get more realistic. Like, what do you think? Like, you're gonna move to foreign countries and learn French and like learn law in French? And like, are you crazy? Like, yeah." I did that. Guys. I did all of that, and I was like, no, that was not realistic to me at the time, but I just kind of did it. And all the realistic people can go fuck themselves. That's how I felt. Over time, what happened was that the nagging feeling of the gap has started to bother me, and not just because like before my goals, like I had goals that I achieved and they were crazy at the time and I did those, but at the same time I started to feel like in my business especially that I really had this big jumps in my head. Like the gap was getting so massive that in the day-to-day activities in my business I started to feel like massive overwhelm. Like I couldn't think about like, okay, like what should I focus on today? Like I don't even know, like what daily tasks should I be doing in the now in order for me to get closer to bridging the gap. And that's kind of what has overwhelmed me for the longest time, to think like, okay, like I have these massive goals, but I'm not there and I don't know how do I get there because I'm just thinking like, light years. I'm so far from where I want to be that it's just right now it's actually not good to look at it right now. And in the now I feel like I lack clarity, and that what do I do? Like what tasks should I be doing? Who should I be talking to? Like so I felt that was a gap that is really, really bothering me. Because before, even though they were crazy, the dreams that I put for myself, they were not so out of reach that I couldn't act on it in the now. because I knew that, okay, I need to apply to the universities and I need to get some language degrees so that I can get accepted. So I knew that those actions are what I needed to do in order for me to get to where I wanted to go. And that somehow was easier for me to gather than the business goals, okay? So if you're guilty of this, if you're feeling like, okay, I have such big goals, I'm just paralyzed in the now, this is what we're going to talk about today. So what I need in order to get realistic on what I have in the now is to actually look at what I have in the now. Okay? So look at what you're earning right now. Look at how many clients do you work with right now. Look at how many team members do you have right now. Look at how many, like the revenue, how much you pay yourself. Like, let's look at the things that is actually at your disposal right now. Let's look at your skills. What skills do you have at your disposal right now? And by looking at these things, like, we don't have to judge them, okay? You just look at the realistic thing, your realistic situation, okay? Let's look at it together. And I want you to spend some time thinking about where you are, right? Really, really where you are. And even though you're not content with everything that's happening and you still want to grow, that's really hard for people to see and understand. For me, that was the first step was to look at where I am now in the most realistic way. And the reason why it's hard for people to look at where they are in the now is because looking at where they are in the now is actually not a happy feeling. Because then you are constantly reminded that you are still not where you want to be. It's almost like you're losing weight. You want to lose weight. And every day you measure yourself. And every day you're reminded that you're still not where you want to be. And that's something that we need to face every day. So in order for us to grow, you still need to be okay with this, okay? And I think that's the hard part, is to admit that where you are now is not where you want to be, but this is where you are now. And for a long time, you need to get reminded until you start going out of and closer to your goals. So that's really, really hard. And I think it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to handle that and to be able to act from the place where you are now. And I want to say this as well, because if you cannot look at realistically your situation, you will start to act and live as you are not in there, even though you are. This is so common. People lie all the time, okay? Even my clients, they lie all the time, where they are like, oh, this is how much I'm making, and I want to have like 1,000 members. And I'm like, how many do you have now? 25. Like, okay, cool. So, so I love when we want to look at high goals, and we all do want to have like this high goals. But I always like to appreciate when someone says, in 5 years, I want to get to here. That I can be like, okay, let's get you there. But it's much more realistic way of looking at where you are than just to be imagining that I wish I was there. So I'm not going to even look at where I am right now. Okay. So it's really hard and it's a constant reminder. But what we need to do is we need to think, I'm going to be very cliche, like look at our big goals and actually dissect them into smaller goals and smaller wins. There's a book called Baby Steps, and Baby Step is literally like mastering just that. Mastering the baby steps, the 1%, the I'm going to show up no matter what, even though it's might look like I'm not progressing, but I am progressing, but it's just not going to look like that in every day. And I'm going to be reminded every day that I'm not there yet. But I'm going to look at it because even though it's not something no one likes to look at, but I need to in order for me to then move to where I want to be. I hope that this was not just a ramble and this has landed with you somehow. I want to continue the conversation about this, the more clarity, the more structure I can get into this. That was a good intro. I hope this was helpful for you and just to think about where you are not looking at where you are realistically. Where are places in your business or life where you inflate yourself and you think like people think, you let people think what they want, even though it's not the truth, but you don't go there to correct them. Like, what are those areas in your life? Why are you doing it? Like, are you fostering authentic connections, or you just really don't want to look at reality? There is nothing wrong with dreaming. And I think that's also something we need to understand. Like, yes, if I was mega hyper realistic, I wouldn't have achieved things. So I do believe that a hint of dreaminess and a hint of desire is amazing to push us forward. I just want us to not make the gap so big that it feels paralyzing us in the now. So how can we bring those closer? How can we dissect those goals into smaller steps so that we don't feel overwhelmed and we don't feel paralyzed to do and take actions in the now? I hope this was helpful. If you're not already a member of the INFJ Entrepreneur Group, we meet every single month for the INFJ Entrepreneurs Virtual Hangout. Come and join on Facebook. I'll put the link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, drive over fear, progress over perfection. Good luck, bye.